With Iron Man 3 just around the corner, let's continue the lead up to its May 3rd release date with the review for Iron Man 2. So this is my review for the movie Iron Man 2. If you missed my first review of the movie Iron Man, you can check it out in the link below or by clicking the annotation on the screen. So Iron Man 2 came out back in 2010, and it was the second installment of the Iron Man franchise. And after the great success of the first Iron Man 2 had some big shoes to fill. Now overall, Iron Man 2 did a good job, but it did have its few problems. Although, in my opinion, the good in Iron Man 2 outweighs the bad. So in Iron Man 2, we have Robert Downey Jr. and Gwyneth Paltrow back as Tony Stark and Pepper Potts. And both of them, just as they did in Iron Man 1, gave it everything they had and more. Their acting in this film is absolutely fantastic. The cast for Iron Man 2 also adds a few new faces. Now in Iron Man 2, we had a recast for Rhodey. Now Rhodey is now played by Don Cheadle, and Don Cheadle and Terrence Howard both brought something great to the character of Rhodey. For me personally, I think the relationship between Don Cheadle's Rhodey and Tony Stark is a lot more buddy-buddy than it was with Terrence Howard. I would say I prefer the Don Cheadle Rhodey just a little bit more, but Terrence Howard still gave a great performance as Rhodey in the first film. More of these new cast members include Scarlett Johansson and Sam Rockwell, and they both did their jobs perfectly. Now one of the villains in this movie, Whiplash, played by Mickey Rourke, was great as well. I loved his costume. His Iron Man costume at the end looked awesome, and I loved his motivation. Now once again, as it did in the first movie, the dialogue between these characters just bounces off each other, which makes it feel real, and this is the reason I really love the dialogue in this movie. Now my biggest problem in this movie came from one character in particular, Tony Stark. Now the character of Tony Stark in Iron Man 2 has to go through some tough times throughout this movie. And a lot of these tough times have something to do emotionally with Tony Stark. And because of this, we see the character of Tony Stark that we loved in the first movie, the narcissistic, funny, rich billionaire man that we all grew to love, fall apart. We see him turn into a self-destructive, drunk man at one point in this film. And at this one point, I just felt so sad because the character that I grew to love, Tony Stark in the first film, isn't the character that we get to see in the second film at all times. Like when Tony Stark is just blowing things up in his house because he's drunk and all self-destructive, you just kind of sit there and say, why, Tony Stark? We loved you in the first film. Why can't you be the same person that you were? Now I understand that there is a story-based reason to why Tony Stark is acting this way, but it just brings sadness to my heart when I see Tony Stark, the character that I loved in the first film and still love to this date, fall apart and act all self-destructive. And thankfully, after a while, Tony Stark finds himself again, and he becomes the character that he was throughout the first film and the beginning of the second. One of the many problems that people had with this movie is that they felt like the plot was just bunched together, that there were too many story arcs going on. And I can understand why people are saying this. I can understand where they're coming from. But for me, personally, I like that there's so many different story arcs. I think the way the majority of the story arcs are handled in this film was handled very nicely, and I thought it was very smart of the creators to tie all these different story arcs together to make, I think, personally, a very well and rounded plot. Something that is also very smart in this movie is some of the action scenes. One of the many smart things that I think the creators did during the action scenes was how they incorporated War Machine and Iron Man during the final battle. To see them both throw down at the end of this movie just brought a smile to my face, because that is what I wanted. The way Tony Stark uses his Iron Man suit in some of these action scenes is very engaging to watch. The thing I love about the action in this movie is that it's very entertaining when it's there. Especially in the final third of this movie, the climax is very entertaining to watch. Tony Stark fly through the city, and the rest of the action in the movie looks very nice as well. So overall, I understand how people feel about Iron Man 2. They feel as if in some cases it's very bloated. But for me, personally, I only had one major problem with this movie, and that was, in some cases, the character of Tony Stark wasn't the character that I grew to love. But when Tony Stark isn't the self-destructive person that he is at one point in this movie, the rest of the movie sails pretty smoothly. Overall, I'm not saying Iron Man 2 was the perfect movie. It did have its problems, but overall, I thought it was a very good movie. It was entertaining, it was fun, and it was nice to see Tony Stark back in the Iron Man suit, back on the big screen. I don't know exactly where I'd put Iron Man 2 on a scale from 1 to 10, but I know it would be between a 7 and a 9. Maybe not as high as the 9s, maybe around the 7s, 8s, but I'm going to say overall Iron Man is awesome. So that is my review for the movie Iron Man 2. Comment below and tell me how you feel about Iron Man 2. Whether you like the first Iron Man or the second Iron Man better. So there we have it. The 2 movies leading up to Iron Man 3's May 3rd release date have been reviewed. So when Iron Man 3 comes out, come back to this channel and I will be reviewing Iron Man 3. Until then, I'm Marco Polo 2417. Have a great day everyone and I'll catch you all soon.